Welcome to the show. I have the real pleasure of introducing a woman, Dr. Aymee Coget. I love the spelling of her first name, Aymee. Love that. And Coget, Coget. She's a PhD, and she has written an amazing book that I've have a chance of looking through a bit. There it is right here. It's called Feel Better Now. Home study course, 5 steps, or launch your upward spiral with 5 steps to sustainable happiness, or sustainable well-being. So before we get into the book, Aymee, just let us know, let me know your background and your training and what got you, just tell me about what got you interested in the subject.
Right. Well, thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Corona. It's quite a pleasure to meet with you and everybody here. My background started a real long time ago in 1996 when I was thinking, well, what did I want to do with my life? The same as everybody usually in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I could help millions of people live happier lives. And that would be like a cause I could get behind. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, well, that's nice, Aymee. How are you going to do that? And then I thought, well, I never heard anyone say, yay, it's Monday. And so I thought I could make an influence in happiness at work, in the culture of work. And then I found positive psychology, which gave me a whole theory and research to stand on. And then I went into leadership. And so mostly organizational psychology is my background. And that includes a variety of topics: leadership, business, economics, anthropology, sociology, positive psychology, and more.
Mm-hmm. And you did get your PhD from Michigan State, you said?
My undergrad is from Michigan State in industrial and organizational psychology with a focus on employee happiness. And then my PhD is from Alliance International University in California. And my specialty is leadership and positive psychology.
Well, go Spartans. So I'm a big football fan, so I know Michigan State. Uh,
Okay, great.
so well, that's quite a background. So it's interesting. So you were even an undergraduate, you were already really interested in this type of specialty because I mean it's very unique. I mean I deal with a lot of psychologists. I mean the most common therapy we call CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's different types of therapy. There's EMDR, there's exposure therapy. There's a lot of different things that the psychologists can do. But I think yours is so refreshing that you mentioned like just happiness. It sounds so basic too. It sounds like, well, being happy, come on, that's real too fluffy. That's too esoteric. That's too, but I think it's fantastic because you're right. I mean, I have a lot of patients who get benefit from therapy, but a lot of it's, a lot of the psychology listening and caring about what the person and just letting the person talk, which is important, and work out things. But a lot of people say, I just kind of I'm stuck. I've kind of told the person everything about me. I'm kind of like searching for stuff to talk about. I don't know what else to talk about now. And so or I'm just like talking about my problems. I'm not finding solutions. So yours, when I've read, the introduction to your book, and I've looked at some of the exercises, and it's a very extensive book. You put a lot of work into this, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh, so tell us the basics of finding happiness and it's sustainable. What's the secret there? I mean, I know it's a simple question, and there's a lot of secrets, but what's the basis of this, and what is it that what's really the secrets to happiness?
Dun, 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 dun. Well, Dr. Corona, in 2007, I was doing a podcast and someone was asking me, well, how do you make these people happy? And I was thinking, I'm never going to tell. I'm never going to tell. And then here we are in 2024. And there's 113 activities that you
I
can do
know.
here. And, I love therapy. I've been in therapy myself forever. I think it's great for a lot of things like increasing your self-awareness or getting something off your chest or, just having someone to talk to about your life. However, happiness, I found, is a totally different beast. And fortunately, because of the science of happiness, we have really clear-cut understandings of happiness that has stopped the illusory of happiness and made it more obtainable than ever if we follow certain guidelines. Thank goodness for amazing doctors like Dr. Sonia Lubomirsky at UC Riverside and Dr. Barbara Fredrickson at University of North Carolina and the University of Michigan. And this is a whole field of positive psychology.
Yeah.
I did not make it up. So there's thousands of pages of research that basically are behind every word in this home study. And what I have found since, 1996, studying happiness and teaching happiness, is that I've deduced it to 5 steps based on an educational model versus a disorder model. So instead of saying there's something wrong with you because you have depression, anxiety, ADHD, and I understand that that is the case, and a lot of times we want to say that's out of the bell curve or what have you. However, so is happiness out of the bell curve. How many people do you actually know that are happy? Most people are dealing with something very serious right now. And so happiness first, before we get into how to do it, I think needs to be understood by the definitions of what is happiness in the first place. So we understand what we exactly are talking about. Would you like me to address the 3 types of
Absolutely.
happiness?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first type of happiness, everybody has experience with, like everyone. Everyone has had a chocolate bar. Everyone has had a new pair of shoes. Everyone has hopefully gone on a vacation or, had a loving experience with someone. So hedonic happiness is a positive emotion that occurs in the brain when something good happens, you get happy. And again, like 100% of the population has experienced this at some point in their life. However, we get stuck in hedonic happiness, especially Americans, because that is our whole right, is to pursue happiness versus be happy. See, there is a difference. And so this hedonic happiness comes in the form of a person, a place, a thing, or a circumstance outside of you. And so ultimately that puts us on what's called the hedonic treadmill, always looking to get the next thing that makes us happy. Can anyone relate? Raise your hand. How many shoes do you have? How many new electronic devices do you buy? How many vacations have you been on? So this is like our addiction to the hedonic treadmill, always wanting to get that happiness boost, whatever it is, and for whatever person. However, there's also the hedonic mirage where we get stuck thinking that we will be happy in the future when everything is perfect. When the right person is in the presidency, when I have the right money in retirement, when all my ducks are in a row, when I meet the right person, when I have the right house. In the future, I will be happy when everything is perfect. Well, due to hedonic adaptation, you want change. So once you achieve your goals, you want something else within 3 to 6 months and then back on the hedonic treadmill. Also, most people are stuck with the emotional roller coaster. If things are good, you're happy. If things are bad, you're unhappy. So this is all in the positive emotion, hedonic happiness area. It's fine, however, we're unable to sustain it. It comes and it goes. Like something great can happen, and then 5 minutes later, something really bad can happen, and that happiness is gone. So
You
what?
mentioned what I was interesting. You mentioned like, especially in Western societies, just instant gratification. Like you said, buying a new car, or buying a new this, or buying a new whatever, and that you get happiness, you get a little bit of dopamine surge and all that, but that doesn't last. And people don't understand, like some of these most wealthiest people and most successful, most famous, and they're miserable. And why are they miserable? People think they have everything. Well, if you're trying to base happiness on things,
Right.
or some of the wealthiest people being the most miserable people, you're missing the boat. But yeah, but we're such a society of just instant gratification, hedonic pleasure.
Yeah.
So what you just said just kind of triggered that with me. That I totally understand what you're saying, and that that's so right on. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you can always tell me I'm right on. Well, think to yourself, and maybe the viewers at home can think, how much time and money have I spent on hedonic happiness? And it's probably a lot. And also, we're driven in wanting the external world to make us happy. And again, look at the current mental health crisis. So how is that working for everybody? So what we care about more are the other two types of happiness. And so the second type of happiness is called eudaimonic happiness, kind of like Eudaman, Dr. Corona, but eudaimonic.
I'm demonic? No, okay.
No. EU is good, daemon is spirit, IC is nature of, basically the opposite of that. And so eudaimonic happiness was introduced by Aristotle, yet American psychology caught up in the early 2000s. Yay for us. And so this is a deep inner contentment, sense of fulfillment in your heart, which is different than a positive emotion in your brain. This is what people truly want. You truly want contentment, yet you think the Snickers and the new iPhone and the new blah, blah, blah is going to get you there, but it's totally a different
Right.
situation or language. And so the four things that unlock this type of happiness, I use the acronym MAPS: meaning, authenticity, purpose, and strengths. And this is more of a heart-based experience versus a head experience or a brain experience like our hedonic happiness. This is sustainable. Once someone does get meaning and purpose, is actualized as their authentic self and using their strengths instead of fixing their problems, then they will feel content inside. However, most people who are depressed or anxious or having problems are out of touch with what gives them meaning and purpose, unactualized in fixing problems versus using strengths. And so that leads to discontentment. So it's easy to talk about contentment, but really think about how discontent you are, and that these four things, you might be cut off from your heart. You might be cut off from your inside self. And so that is an important piece to basically reconnect in order to generate that eudaimonia from the inside out. And no one can take it away. Once that is developed inside, you can have that forever. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, that's a lot. So because I think a lot of people, well, how can I be happy? Look at my life, my boss is a jerk. I hate going to work. I hate my job. My marriage isn't going great. My kids are spying. My kids have addiction issues.
Fill in the blank. Yeah, for all the reasons to be unhappy. And I will address that for sure in 1 second. I just
Yeah.
want to say the third type of happiness is chironic happiness, just before we get too far ahead of ourselves. So chironic happiness is bliss and joy. And so that comes from something connected to something larger than yourself. Like if you're in meditation or you go to church or you visit nature or something like that. Some people with their family, some people at a rock concert, wherever that feeling of connection to something larger than yourself. So going back to what you were saying, yeah, I don't have meaning and purpose. I'm barely making a good paycheck. I have to sit in rush hour traffic. My boss yells at me every day. Like everyone has a reason to be unhappy. That is for sure. Although what the difference is that we choose to take happiness into our own hands instead of waiting for the gas station or the gas prices to make us happy, or our children to stop whatever it is that they're doing that makes us unhappy. We decide that happiness is something generated from the inside and actually has nothing to do with the external world. So we disconnect from the emotional roller coaster. Any excuse that you have for a reason to be unhappy is that you have to basically choose to be happy. And we talk about this decision. So this decision basically takes the power into your own hands. And so this is an opportunity to respond to circumstances with happiness, because most people are confused on what that even means. And so it takes skills to be able to deal with all of those things that you mentioned in, a flourishing type of way. However, we are without being taught resilience tools in school. Where do you learn positive psychology? Only at like Harvard and Yale and UC Riverside. I mean, it's so scarce. And so most people are unequipped to actually be able to overcome adversity because they don't have these regular coping skills in their regular educational system. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And you're right, the coping skills is key. And it looks like that you address all those in your book really, really completely, and very detailed. And I like the fact that it's a workbook, so people have to put thought into it. You're not just reading, you're writing about yourself, you're putting it down on paper. That's very powerful. When you put things on paper and you give plenty of room to write, and you have the 5 steps, but then like 100 and some mini steps. And so, yeah, but it's very extensive, and yeah, I'm really surprised. I mean, I've done a lot of reading, and there's the book Power of Positive Thinking, and there's a lot of books out there, but I've never seen anything quite like this, where you actually you really engage people to find their own happiness, and it's everyone's own journey. And unfortunately, like I said, I deal, my specialty is dealing with mood disorders, so I can treat people, I can give them medications, and they get better, but they're not, even if they're better, the depression's lifted, but they're not always necessarily happy. They're happy to not be so depressed. They're happy to not feel suicidal. They're
Yeah.
happy to not be manic, and they're happy to be stable, but there's still not that underlying joy and pleasure and smile. And I mean, you can tell people who are happy, when you interact with them. You know,
Definitely.
because it's so unusual, that when you see someone who actually has inner happiness, it's very apparent. It's kind of shocking. It's like, what are you smiling about? And this isn't, this world, there's nothing to smile about. I mean,
Yeah.
recently the fires in LA, and just tragedy. But among tragedy, there's also stories of joy, and in the worst circumstances like that, there's certain people who are still finding positive. And it's interesting. I saw some interviews, and these people lose their homes or lose their business, and they're like, well, at least I haven't lost my family. At least my pets are safe. So it's like after losing everything, and they realize the most important things are the things that they already have. And
Right.
so and so when I saw that, I thought that's a perfect example of what Amy's talking about finding joy in tragedy. And
Absolutely.
so anyways, go on.
Yeah, it's actually called post-traumatic growth. And the reason why you want to choose happiness or choose acceptance and work with what you have in those adverse moments is because your brain functions better. So if your brain functions better to be able to handle adversity, that's what you want, versus being depressed where the brain closes down. So you want to open up and more activity to be able to help yourself in those situations. I mean, tell me one person who's never had adversity. Like,
Mhm.
tell me one. I mean, even a ladybug has adversity. Like everything has adversity somehow. And so what is most powerful though and freeing is cutting the cord between all of life and your own inner contentment and bliss. And in this particular home study, you practice routines. So you have a routine in the morning, a routine in the daytime, and a routine in the evening, because instead of getting blips of happiness off of an Amazon purchase, you're more likely to feel a better happiness if you have your gratitude practice, if you're living in the moment, if you're thinking positive, if you're feeling zesty. These are skills that most people can learn.
Yeah, and yeah, I love everything you're saying. There's so many questions I have, but I'm trying to think. Um, an interesting thing I read in your book is about neuroplasticity. If you can speak to, because that's something in my field, basically, so how are new neurons and new synaptic connections formed? Is that how does that happen with what you're teaching?
Right, that's a great question. And starting in 2010, we had some really great research that shows these particular positive psychology slash happiness science activities do treat symptoms in the brain of depression, anxiety, and so on. And so the reason is because of this amazing ratio, 3 to 1. It's called the broaden and build theory of positive emotion, and by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. And so this is basically one of the cornerstones of positive psychology that shows that if we engage in 3 positives to every 1 negative, our life will go into an upward spiral, which is right here on the cover,
Mhm.
out of a downward spiral or stopping a downward spiral. I'm sure you and or all these people out there have either been in a downward spiral at some point or know someone who's been in a downward spiral at some point. And so if you have the power to control that downward spiral and create an upward spiral in your life, that's amazing. And so all it actually takes is 3 positives. Like, let's say I'm going to be grateful in the moment. I'm going to do my smile push-ups. I'm going to be positive thinking. Then that's going to influence my brain in a way that is uninfluenced if I'm without doing any of those things. And so let's say I do Dr. Aymee smile push-ups 5 a day for 3 months. That smile push-ups is going to lead you to a stronger brain chemistry than if you've never done them, or the first 5 smile push-ups. And so that's creating new activity in the brain that hasn't really been there before because you've never done that particular exercise. And so when you're doing these, positive psychology exercises in a regimen and in a system, that's what changes the brain, is from the repetition and being able to do it in a sustainable amount of time. So just like going to the gym consistently, you're going to feel the difference in your mind and your body and everywhere. Same thing with happiness. But if you never ever pick up a gratitude practice, you never ever live in the moment, you're thinking negative and you're never engaged in these activities, of course, your brain will stay the same. However, in a very short amount of time with consistent practice, you can get a change in the brain in 4 to 6 weeks.
There's been research showing about how the changes in the brain. I mean, have they been able to do like scanning and showing the changes in that way too?
What I like to talk about is the Mayo Clinic imagery around a beautiful brain that is depressed versus happy. And so you can see the difference there as far as that particular brain imagery. I'm sure I'm kind of out of touch with the latest, like 5 years or whatever, of happiness
Me too.
research. However, Dr. Davidson in Wisconsin definitely has studied monks. And so studying the monk's brain. However, the average Joe out there who's watching this Roku show is not a monk, and they don't understand how to become a monk in like 30 minutes. And so instead of that, just go with the feel better home study and start your gratitude practice in the morning. And that is what's going to do the shift. What's interesting, Dr. Corona, is that I could ask a question of somebody before I do happiness exercises, and they will be uncertain of the answer. And then I will do a couple activities of happiness exercises, ask the same question, and they have an answer.
Mm. Yeah, and I love your the topics. I love the smile push-ups, by the way. That's great. I love that. You talk about planting the seeds, growing flowers, and so really interesting ways that you phrase things, and very, very practical. And I see even like there's a testimony by a teenage boy who's going who enjoyed the book. And so I mean there's so many testimonials that you include in the book that are pretty impressive. I don't have those in my book. I probably should try it, but I don't have those kind of nice words in my book. But personally, I've had like I told you before, we talked before this. I've had a really good life, but I've had adversity, and I talk about it in my newest book, which I'm going to send you. The Chironic Protocol. I talk about it, and I'm very honest about the struggles and adversity I've gone through in my life, and how I've gotten through them. And I'm a very naturally positive thinker, so I've been able to kind of get out of those times, just by realizing that I have so much going on. I have so much. I mean, I can't focus on these negative things that happen that I can't control. All I can do is focus on what I can control. And even people who've gone through some horrific things like child molestation and rape and things that are just horrible. And you would think that how is this person ever going to get past that?
Right.
They can. And I think I've seen it happen. I've seen people where I'm surprised that they're doing as well as they're doing given their background. Because like I said, we all have adversity, some more than other. Some people have it worse than others. Some people handle it better than others. But I think, like I said, it's a great approach because it's empowering the person to help people to help themselves. And like I said, therapy is still can be very important, but I'm already thinking about patients of myself that I'm going to refer them to your book. That I think is a guy I recently saw who he had a facelift because he wants to look younger. He has the latest sports car. He very wealthy, but still there's that underlying unhappiness. And you would look at his life and like, come on, are you kidding me?
Right.
What do you have to, there are people who have real problems, out
Yeah.
there. You don't have any real problem. Well, yeah, but he obviously doesn't he's trying to get it through instant gratification, through obtaining things
Mhm.
and thinking that that's going to make him happy, and it hasn't. And he's thinking, okay, this facelift will do it now.
Right.
It might help. You might feel better for a little while, but it's not gonna. The changing your face is not gonna change you inside.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I even worked with a plastic surgeon who wanted to refer me to his patients because he could tell if they really wanted it or if they were really just wanted to be happy. And so there is that, trick that we give ourselves around, this or that contortion, whether it's a financial contortion or whatever, a car or a facelift, then that's the thing that's going to make us happy. And then I'll bet $1 million that guy is going to be unhappy within 3 to 6 months after whatever he does, unless he does the inner work to be content, independent of anything, if he's on Survivor Island without his facelift and his sports car. And unfortunately, this is what, most people think, is that when they achieve their goals, they will be happy. Whether your goal is beauty or money or debt or love or whatever it is. And it's the people who've achieved all of their goals that hire me because they realize, oh, another wife isn't going to make me happy. Another car isn't going to make me happy. Another business isn't going to make me happy. And so this is where you get stuck and you have to, call in the big happiness, big guns.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You mentioned plastic surgery. I was thinking the same thing. Well, not only him, but I was watching part of the Golden Globes the other night, and all these movie stars, these women especially, have all this work done. And it's like, who is that person? And when they smile, their face doesn't move, and they're just plastic, and they're Botox, and their lips are like this, and it just they look horrible. And the ones that haven't had all that work done, they look great. And but see, that's the body dysmorphia. That's the feeling that, you know, you look in the mirror and they're not happy with what they see. So yet another plastic surgery is going to do it, and then another one, and then another one, and then it just becomes an obsession. And then and then you take a person who looks normal, and then all of a sudden they look like freakish, and so I mean, it just really struck me when I saw some of the people they were showing pictures, like, and I was like, who's that? That's that
Right.
Chris. Oh my gosh, that person's changed quite a bit. And
Right. Well, what's interesting is the inner glow. And so at some point I presented to the top 25 executives at Procter and Gamble on positive psychology. And I gave them a picture of Kate Moss, who is unhappy in one picture and happy in the other one. And which do you think she was more beautiful in?
what I'm sorry, but
Which picture was Kate Moss more beautiful in? The one where she was unhappy or the one where she was smiling and happy?
you would think the one where she's smiling and happy,
Yeah.
but no.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
Okay, all right,
And so, so beauty can come beyond Botox from the inside out, is
right,
what I'm saying. So happiness can be your beauty just as much as everything else.
right. And that a beautiful model, exactly, where you're revered, you're gorgeous, and then it's like, what problem could that woman have? She's got everything. And but you're right. You can see it, and I can see it with my patients when they come in, or when I see them on Zoom, or whatever. It's like you can just tell by looking at them, and just seeing them talk, if they're happy or not. You can just tell.
Right.
Just
Right.
a sense.
The words in particular, I'm glad you brought that up, just how they talk. And so this actually correlates back to the neuroplasticity. And so in this program, you actually eliminate a few different words that an unhappy person tends to say a lot, which is no, not, don't, can't, should, but, and try. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a language center of our brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have a language center of our brain that is stuck in the patterns of no, not, don't, can't, should, but, try. And all of a sudden, you put some cones like on a highway in front of those words, and you're like, oh, I gotta say unsure instead of I don't know. And so that also changes the brain patterning. And so if you eliminate just these particular words, and I go so far as programming a positive keyboard that changes those in the second you are writing it. And so this is another way that people can help themselves for free, just easily eliminating those words.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you do you now, when you do therapy with people, do you still have I'm assuming you have individual sessions with patients. Do you so you incorporate this book probably with all your patients, and you have them, do you work with them as they go through it, through the book?
That's a great question, Dr. Corona. And since this is just readily available on Amazon as of the end of October,
Mhm.
I'm so excited that everybody can have a shot at this. And yes, I do work with my patients with this. However, there are other activities that I do that are outside of this, like dealing with childhood trauma or an anger purge. There are other things. However, this is the meat of, most of my work and how people improve.
Mhm. I had heard the term, I think we mentioned the Reiki therapy. Can you explain what Reiki therapy is?
Yeah, that's another great question. So Reiki is a energy healing modality that originated from Jesus and Buddha. Do you remember, or you've heard they could heal with their hands?
Yeah, yeah. There's people
Okay.
like like feel the aura of the person. Or,
Something like that. Yeah. So
right.
that is called Reiki, basically. And so it was rediscovered by a monk in Japan. And he made it his, named Mikao Usui, and he made it his life's mission to find out why Jesus and Buddha could heal with their hands and no one else could. And so he flew around the world, he interviewed all the people, he read all the books, and actually was unsuccessful and about to give up. And instead of giving up, he decided to meditate on top of a mountain for 21 days with the idea of connecting into like God for the answer, basically. And on the 21st day, I mean, this kind of seems fantastical or fairy tale like, but he basically was gifted these symbols, Reiki symbols, the ability to heal with his own hands. So instead of God saying, oh, let me explain how Buddha did it, he was like, let me just give this power to you. So he came down that hill with the ability to heal with his hands. And I am 11 generations from that person
Really?
in the Reiki lineage. Yes.
Wait,
And
you're the 11th generation descendant?
yes, the way Reiki works is through a Reiki passing to a Reiki master. It gets you basically initiated into the Reiki lineage through a special ceremony where these particular symbols are placed in your chakra system. So Reiki is a modality that is based in symbols that works with your chakra system. And so I found through my long time history in psychology that your chakras and your energy also are connected to your subconscious, which no one can escape from.
Right.
And so we all have this subconscious. So Reiki enables me to be able to see people or help people heal from things in the past or things that they're unsure of or things that they maybe have never even told me about that I can help with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Very interesting. Very fascinating, actually. Um, so, and you've seen that obviously work for yourself. Do you do that or no?
Yes, I was introduced into Reiki an interesting way where in college, my boyfriend who went to medical school, he was Indian and he was raised in LA. He went to the Yale, he went to Berkeley, he was at Michigan State Med School, and he told me his aunt cleared traffic with Reiki to get him to the airport on time in Bombay. And I was an undergrad at that time and I was like uncertain how to respond. So I was like, boop, boop.
Hmm.
Does not compute. And then the next thing I know, I was in San Francisco and I was playing soccer and I used to have triple scoliosis in my back and I had to get treatment, whether it was chiropractor or massage or something in order to treat myself. And so I worked with this one massage therapist who happened to be a Reiki master. And so I was playing soccer. I did a slide tackle on gravel. There was zero skin on my knee whatsoever. He came over like normal to give me a massage once a week. It was when I was in corporate job and doing my grad school, so it was really crazy. And he did Reiki over my knee like this, basically for 5 minutes and it was perfectly healed in 3 days. And so I thought to myself after a lifetime of playing soccer and knowing that like there's pretty much no way that you're the scab and all of that, you're always moving your knee. There's no way I could see a scab in front of my face hour by hour. And so I knew there was something to this. I didn't really understand it very much, and I still can't quite explain it to that great. I mean, I've
Yeah.
talked to PhDs in quantum physics who work for NASA, things to be able to explain why I can do things like this. However, that might be a conversation for another day. So I found that it helps people by them being able to reconnect to themselves without the idea of the situations that they've been through. So it's purely your own self-awareness versus what happened to you.
Oh, that's really fascinating. You also mentioned in your book that simple acts of kindness to other people. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in the daytime routine to help increase your positive mood, I call it the kindness challenge. And so every day, like let's say you have a kindness alarm that goes off at like 1:11 or something, and then you challenge yourself to do 5 acts of kindness in 5 minutes. And it can be as simple like text message or liking something on social media, or telling someone you're with that they have a nice smile, or that color looks good on you, or pet the dog, or let someone in the traffic. There's a lot of opportunities for these acts of kindness. Again, free, anyone can do it at any time. Even kids love doing this. And so set a quick timer, do 5 acts of kindness, and watch your mood boost literally in 5 minutes.
Great, amazing stuff. Tell us more, anything more in your book you'd like to talk about? I mean, there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. Well, the 5 steps to sustainable well-being are empowerment. You have to become empowered over your own well-being first, instead of waiting around for the world to make you happy. That's a failed strategy. Trust me. And then the second step is positive mood. So learn how to generate a positive mood from the inside out, from the acts of kindness, the gratitude, the smile push-ups. There's a number of different activities there. And then the third step is resilience. And so this is the crux of sustainable well-being, because if you're unable to overcome your adversity, you're unable to get to contentment, which is step 4. So these are the basics: empowerment, positive mood, and resilience. You have to master in order to get to contentment and bliss, which is the final step, the real good stuff. However,
Right.
you're never going to really get bliss unless you have empowerment, positive mood, resilience, and contentment in place.
You can't jump from 1 to 5. You gotta do it the right. You gotta do it in the right order.
It
And
is helpful.
the resilience part is probably the most difficult for people, because people get so trapped into the negativity when something bad happens that they just dwell on it, and they can't get past. They have a hard time moving past it, and they just focus on the negative, and so I probably, that middle one, the third one, is the one, the hump to get over to get into 4 and 5. And
Yes, definitely. And in this Feel Better Now home study course, there are activities that you can use, like the happiness shield, for example. So let's use one right now, so then your audience can potentially go home with their happiness shield. And if you're open to it.
yeah,
Okay, so basically think of any person, place, thing, or circumstance that could give you or someone adversity.
oh, there's several. Well, there's some. Yeah, okay.
So think of one that we could use for an example.
um, hmm. Well, there's like, I mean, there's sometimes like certain patients that are really, really difficult, to deal with. They're, so I mean, most of my patients, but there's some that they're really, really tough. They're tough for me to deal with because, I may not, you know, be really happy with that person, but that's difficult for me because I know that there's the potential there, but that person is just so stuck in their negativity, and then kind of and then I feed off that, and it makes me feel negative because I get frustrated, and that, why am I not able to help this person more? What am I not doing right? So that's probably an example. I don't know, and there's several I can think of, not just one.
Right. Well, we could use that. I mean, pretty much, I'm sure everyone has a difficult person in their life, whether it's at work or home. We
Right.
could just use that. And so the happiness shield is comprised from positive psychology, and it's based in kindness, love, optimism, gratitude, zest, and curiosity. And
Mm,
so if you think that you can definitely get behind those particular character strengths in your life, then I can share with you how to use them in an adverse situation. And
mm,
so what's great about the happiness shield is that you can use it externally in conversation and dialogue, or internally in your own inner monologue. And so I'm going to go with that one first.
mm,
So I'm going to pretend like I am you
mm,
for a minute in this situation. Um, and again, I'm going through kindness, love, optimism, gratitude, zest, and curiosity.
mm.
So I admire myself for keeping my cool when this guy is losing it. I accept that he does have a mental health challenge. I am optimistic that we're going to get through this 5 minutes, and I'm going to help him with the medicine that he came for. I am grateful that he is alive because I know he's been really struggling lately. I
Mm.
am excited to go to the gym after work. And I am interested in knowing how many more patients I have before then.
How about I'm interested when you say curiosity. Tell me about that.
So that is interested in. So we want to avoid the word curious, and just use I'm interested in knowing.
Huh.
And so curiosity is actually the gold mine of, of happiness, according to some research. If you feel like you have a high curiosity strength, then you're probably never going to get bored, and you will always be expanding yourself and interested in flourishing and thriving and figuring out life and every minute. And, you have that natural zest because of the curiosity. So you're always engaged. If someone is uncurious, then they'll be without that motivation, that intrinsic motivation to really do something different than they normally would do. And so the actual research over time shifted from kindness being in the top 5 to curiosity being in the top 5. So instead of kicking kindness out, I added curiosity into the model.
I really like that because I love what I do. But it's what drives me is curiosity. Because I'm always looking for, okay, this is a challenging person, and I'm curious as to why I haven't figured out quite yet, and what can I do now before next visit to make this person truly happy. And again, it's a matter, I probably can't do it with just medications for a lot of people. Now, there's some people that are very simple. A med or two, they're great. They're back to their old selves again. They're happy. They're good. They're good to go. But then there's the curiosity for me is like, okay, I've been doing this for so long. I've written 6 books now. How come I can't figure this out? What am I doing wrong? And that's maybe where the negative comes in for me, because I'm beating myself up saying, like, how come, why can I not help this person as much as I want to? And maybe I have to get to the point where, well, that person needs the help themselves. They need to help themselves.
Yeah.
I can only do what I can do, and I can't make everybody happy with what I do. I mean, I'm not a therapist. My field is psychiatry. Focus, our focus is medication, because we want to treat things like anxiety, depression, bipolar, whatever. But that's probably the missing part that I see, which really I think this can really help to fill that void, because when I have people like that, and that's why when I told you earlier, I'm already thinking about patients to refer this to. I've already visualizing certain people that are frustrating to me, that I need to refer them to this book to read.
Great. Yeah, basically I get all of the hard cases that have found that regular avenues are unhelpful, or treatment resistant depression, or things like this, because unfortunately it's true, people seek up to 5 different options to help themselves with the mental health, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But maybe the medicine is unable to work for that person, or maybe the person that never found the right therapist, or whatever it is. And this is written for anyone over the age of 12. And so for anyone over the age of 12, you went through sixth grade, you can do this.
Yeah.
And also, this might seem simple. However, remember, it took about 20 years to do. And also, this is based in 17 different individual change theories within this book. And so it might seem like it's simple. However, there was a lot of complexity to be able to distill it into something for a 12-year-old that is effective, that will change you or anyone when you actually do the system.
Yeah. I'm not sure my books are for 12-year-old. It's probably not that level, but yours, looking through your book, I can see how someone, a teenager or even a preteen, can be able to do these things themselves, because everything, it makes perfect sense. It's simple to follow. You make it simple, but again, it's not simple because it took you a long time to come. You make it look simple when you do this, but I know it took a lot. Being an author myself, feel a lot of time and effort that goes into this stuff that people don't understand unless they've been where we're at and they've seen like what we've gone through to produce something like this,
Yep.
And so
And I would just say to those people at home who are struggling with mental health, just stop giving up on yourself for any reason. Never give up. Never give up on yourself. Whether it's this book or your books or, anyone else out there, there's always something that can help you,
yeah.
so always keep looking for that thing and, eventually you're going to find it. So I want to offer hope to the viewers that maybe if traditional things haven't worked for you, there still are things like positive psychology or Reiki or things that you potentially have never heard of that can actually help.
Right. Yeah. So so tell our viewers too how, where do they, like, you have it on Amazon, where anywhere else you have it besides Amazon?
Yes, well, right now it is on Amazon, Feel Better Now, Home Study. And then there's also this littler book. It is the Happiness for Humankind Playbook, Sustainable Happiness in 5 Steps. And this is like a quick read. And this is like the flagship book here.
That's the one you wrote that before the newest one.
Yes, so this has everything that this has in it, except this has a lot of activities, and this just tells you about the activities. And
And have
then
you, yeah, you've written other books too, haven't you?
this one, yes. So this is at Walmart, Barnes and Noble, and Amazon. And then this one is at Amazon. It's uh, Find Your Blissful Calling. And so at some point I was like, how did I become a happiness expert? And, through knowing things like the job characteristics model and my particular background, I was able to devise a very short, like 30-page, again, workbook that can help anybody determine what their calling is in a short amount of time, kind of like your life purpose.
Well, I mean, it seems like because you've been interested in this even as an undergrad, you've been interested, which is interesting because most people don't know at that stage exactly what they want to do. So the fact that you were able to focus on that undergrad is pretty impressive too. And then obviously when you get to the PhD level, you have to really know what you want to focus on at that point. Um, so the same in medicine, we go to pre-med, we go to medical school, but then you really would know what you want to do probably towards the end of medical school when you've already been exposed to all the different disciplines, and then you decide what you want to. Because in my story, I started as a family doctor when I the beginning, and because I didn't know I like psychiatry, I like pediatrics, I like OBGYN, I like adult medicine, so I liked kind of a little of everything, and I didn't really know. So I decided on family practice. I thought, well, I'll get a little of everything. That'll make me happy because I'll be able to treat the wide variety of things. And I really did enjoy that my first decade of practice. But then when I started really understanding mental health, which is really starting in the early 1990s when I started practice, is when I really started to find it. So it really took me a while, and like most doctors know earlier. I didn't know for a while what I really want to do for my career until about probably early 2000 range, when I started to realize that I need to give that I can't do everything anymore. I need to focus on what I need to focus on. And that's when I started writing my first book, is because I really started realizing that, I'm learning things here that I'm not, that are new and they're different. And I think it was probably my primary career background that gave me a wider range of view of a human being, really understanding the mind body connection. And I mean, my first three books are called Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy, because I really started seeing that the mind and body are the same thing. And I think most doctors focus on the body, but not the brain. Most psychiatrists focus on the brain, but not the body. And
Right.
I started seeing that you can't do that. You can't separate these two things because they're intertwined, and the brain is the body, and you can't. The nervous system is everywhere,
Yeah.
and so that's why I started to see like my real purpose was to focus on what I'm doing now. And I'm really happy with the change I made, and I really enjoy what I do, and I love what I do. And do I have challenges? Yeah. Do I? In my book, I talk my recent book, the Corona Protocol. I talk about challenges, but at the end of the day, it's getting through the challenges, beating them. It's coming back and getting on top of it, and not letting those things drag you down. Because if you let challenges drag you down, then you give challenges the power.
Right.
And instead of taking your own power and being in charge of your own happiness and your own destiny, that's our purpose right there, is to find, and in my case, it's finding how many people I can help,
Hmm.
how many people can I feel get better, and how many people can I make happy. And
Right.
and to me, there's nothing more satisfying to me than when I see a patient that I've gotten to that level at, where I'm happy, they're happy, we're all happy, good to go. And so let's move on to the next one now. Let's see if I can do that with the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I believe it was Aristotle who said happiness is the goal of all goals. So,
I took philosophy in college, and Aristotle is my favorite philosopher, by the way.
yeah. Well, it's
I
because
love
we
I
have
love
a
Aristotle.
positive
The first
psychology.
guy, the first one really, or for the first main one, before Plato, Socrates, and the rest of them. I think Aristotle is still like to me, he's the number one. He's the best one ever, in my opinion. I mean, of course, there's a lot of good modern ones, of course, but yeah, but with him, he was just very logical. The thing about Aristotle. I mean, there's some psychologists say, well, is that a lamp? Maybe it's not really a lamp. Is that a table? Maybe it's not really a table. It's like, what? That's a lamp, that's a table. This is stupid, but Aristotle didn't do that. He was like, look, this is, be logical about things. So
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of being logical with the 5 steps and like spreadsheets and this is how you do it step by step. And I love that. I love that in psychology because it's hard to get that nuts and bolts type of approach, or that step by step, or what do I need to do? And so most people do get to that place at some point in their therapy, like, just tell me what to do. And then the therapist like, tell me more about how you feel, about how you want me to tell you what to do. And so then that's why this is in existence, because this tells you what to do. This is your happiness how to right here. Do it yourself, DIY.
yeah, every person is empowered to be able to make this happen, no matter how dire circumstances. Because I do have some people who their circumstances are dire, and it's like, why is that person so happy? Why is so that person's figured it out somehow, because I mean, this person doesn't really have a lot to be happy with, but that's a genuine smile that person had. You could tell it's not fake, and then you think, gosh, I have so many patients that have so much more, and so much better off than this person. Why is this person so happy? And obviously that person's figured it out. but
Yeah,
not
well,
everybody. Not
also it
everybody
could be
can.
genetic. It could be genetic, so there is like a genetic situation as well. If your parents were unhappy, you're more likely to be unhappy. If your parents are happy, you're more likely to be happy. And it's true, someone in the slums in India can be happier than Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
So it really depends, there are errors in positive psychology research, just like all research too, so for example, there was a $70,000 a year note that if you'd only take $70,000 a year and then you will be happy. However, back to the slums in India person, that person may never get to 70,000, and the people who have way more than 70,000 are unhappy. And
right.
so ultimately, where does this all lead us? Back to ourselves to learn how to be happy step by step. And happy people are healthier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's happiness, and really at the end of the day, it's the secret of life. It's the goal of life. We're only here for so many years. None of us are here forever. We all are, but I think for the time we have here, I think we have so much to be grateful for, and there's so many people that, that you look at things, some people have it worse off, and, but again, when I did my residency in Los Angeles, and I was there a couple of years before I moved down to Orange County and started practice here. But I was working in the clinics, and some of these mostly Hispanic population, and they came in. Dad was a gardener, mom was a house house cleaning, and didn't have a lot of money. But some of these people are just they were just happy, and it's like, it really struck me as like, man, these people have like 16 children. They it's like, how in the world can this person's provide for 6 children or whatever? And I was like, I didn't get this. I was like, oh my God, how can they even survive on the money they make with this family? And somehow they do it. And I was seeing in some of these cases just true happiness. And I remember it just it struck me at the time. And then I moved down to Orange County, and this is some of the poor parts of LA. And then I moved to Orange County, where it's a rich part of the country, like San Francisco. And it's like, gosh, there's a lot of really unhappy people down here. In this paradise here. It's where I live here in Laguna Niguel in South Orange County. It's really nice. And but you would think that being in this area and having the money to live here, you would think that would make people happy, and it doesn't. And a lot of people aren't. They're really unhappy.
No.
So
Well, they've never been trained in happiness. They are smart people, likely, except this is just unavailable to the regular Joe and the regular streams of how we learn things. And, that gives me meaning and purpose every day to like continue to toot the horn to get this option out there because, as you said in the beginning, happiness can be illusory or people say it's not important, but honestly, it's life or death. And you see that yourself. If someone is unhappy, they can commit suicide.
yeah,
And so this is a very serious matter, actually. So, this might look fun in games, everybody, but without happiness, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for happiness. And so the people who are already happy are on to the next thing. And so that's, where people like you and me are. Well, we're on to the next thing, helping others achieve their own happiness. But ultimately, it is the power of the individual and being able to access the information that they need to educate themselves on how to be happy just as much. They could educate themselves on different gym activities to use for the sit-ups or the quadriceps, or, there are those, okay, now I'm going to focus on my empowerment. Now I'm going to focus on positive mood. Now I'm going to focus on resilience. Now I'm going to focus on contentment. At least there is a plan and a pathway.
yeah. Great. Anything else you'd like to share before we close up? Anything else that you would like to say to the audience?
Audience, thank you for tuning in. Dr. Corona, thank you so much for having me on the show.
I highly recommend everyone get this. Like I said, I'm going through it myself. I've enjoyed what I've read so far. It's Aymee makes it Dr. Aymee makes it makes it fun, makes it I mean, parts of it make you laugh kind of, because it's when you have fun, when things are funny, you're having fun. And And there's some pretty really engaging things that you have in here, and just so I can see when people get sucked into this. And so yeah, so I would highly recommend it. I'm gonna recommend it to my patients too. And thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
My day. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Paul Corona, and thank you, everybody. And visit happinessforhumankind.com for more information.
Great. Dr. Coget, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.